Hey, listeners and hearers, welcome back to Imagination Station. I'm your host and favorite author, Lisa Walker McCrae, with another compelling reading from the pages of my novel, A Peculiar Kind of Love. Remember, you guys, this video is for entertainment purposes only. First and foremost, big praise to the Most High Yah, and a special shout out to you guys that are still chiming in. Much love from this way. With that being said, are y'all about ready to turn some pages and see what the imagination holds for us today? Cool beans, I thought so. So, let's get into it. Clarence, set the stage. Okay, darlings, quick recap from our last reading. We're still at the B&B and the Fillmores are on their third day stay. Unfortunately, we left them struggling with the day, for it was the 8th anniversary of their son Jacob's death. Drew tried her best to make them comfortable by starting them off with a good country breakfast and a little entertainment for Gabe. Fortunately, the Tate stopped by, just in time to intervene the Fillmore's awkward and emotional heart-to-heart about Jacob. So, let's get into it. Brenda and Betty are still on the deck, chatting it up like they've been knowing each other for years. The more the women talked, the better Betty felt. Brenda had given her so much insight on life, death, love, and loss. Brenda was amazing, and Betty was indulging in the conversation. She took Brenda's hand, informing her it was truly a blessing to have her to talk to. You are truly an angel sent by God, Brenda. Betty handed her a refreshing smile. Brenda blushed. She told Betty she was just doing what Yah purposed her to do here on earth. Betty clutched her heart suddenly, then squealed. You know, Brenda, Gabe has really made our stay here at Serenity Meadows worth it. Your grandson is one of a kind. Yes, he is, Brenda agreed. She noticed Betty leering off into space with the saddest look on her face. Brenda wondered why she got so sad at times. Are you okay, sweetheart? Brenda asked. Tears fell from Betty's eyes before she could catch them. She told Brenda about Jacob. Oh, this was a pain all too familiar for Brenda. She felt obligated to share her story about Sean in hopes it would give Betty some light in the dark place that held her bound. Me and my husband Joe lost a son 16 years ago. Sean, Brenda revealed, fighting back the tears. Brenda told Betty about the accident, the hurt, the distress, the confusion, and all it took for her to survive Sean's death. Sweetheart, the pain and hurt never stops. You just learn to live with it, Brenda voiced. Betty accepted the words. Brenda then went on to tell Betty about Joe's infidelity, not trying to shame him or anything, but these were the trials she had to endure. Wiping the lingering tears, Betty thanked Brenda. Betty then went on to tell her it felt good to talk to someone who understood her hurt and the way she felt. Brenda, you are an angel in disguise. No one but another mother can understand a mother's love and tears. Meanwhile, in the exercise room, Larry was killing himself laughing, watching Joe trying to capture his youth. Oh Lord, here we go, male testosterone. Anyway, Joe pulled the cable on the home gym for the 19th time, struggling. Hey man, you good? Larry asked, concerned about Joe's struggle. Now shaking, trying to pull the cable out, Joe assured he was okay. Larry hoped he didn't hurt himself trying to prove a point he didn't ask for. 20, Joe yelled out, dropping the 200-pound weight. Joe then started jumping around, claiming he still had it. That's what 55 and strong look like. You hear me, young man? Yeah, I hear you, Mr. Joe, Larry replied. The men dabbed it up. Joe told Larry him and his boys used to get in the backyard almost every day and hit the iron when they were coming up. You got boys, Joe asked. Larry lowered his head. Noticing Larry's decline from 100 to 0, Joe told him he had 2 sons, but Yah saw fit to take one. Sean was his name. It's been 16 years now. My boy was only 18 years old. Larry lifted his lowered head. Looking at Joe, he wouldn't have never known he'd lost a child. He was so vibrant. Larry felt compelled to tell Joe about Jacob and his affair. "I've been there, son," Joe replied after Larry's spiel. "How did you get through it?" Larry asked, adding Joe didn't look like he'd suffered a loss so extreme. Joe told Larry it was Yah that got him through it. Joe then took Larry down memory lane with him, recalling the day the police came to tell him about Sean's accident. "My life hasn't been the same since. I'll forever remember going down to the morgue identifying his body. I'll forever remember the condition of his car, picking out the casket and putting my son in the ground." Joe shook away the tears. Becoming transparent, Joe told Larry after all that he didn't remember much because he was at the bar more than he was at home and work. Joe went on to tell Larry he almost lost everything, including his family. "So, I started going to this grief support group where I met the test. It was all a test, don't get me wrong, but this right here was a test that would make me or break me." Joe went on to inform the test was a lady who lost a son 2 years before he did, a sweet and compassionate lady with all the right words. Shaking his head, Joe thought about how selfish he was towards Brenda and Jay. He told Larry life was already upside down. His oldest was dead, his baby boy was in the streets more than he was, and his wife wouldn't say a word. Joe went on to tell Larry all Brenda did was sit in the window and watch, as though she was waiting for Sean to come home. Man, she cried every day, all day. She stopped cooking, she stopped cleaning, she stopped parenting, she even stopped wifing. She just stopped living. Larry stayed silent, allowing Joe to empty his closet. There was no judgment. Larry himself understood how easy it was to be knocked off track by grief. Joe cleared his throat, then continued. He told Larry with his life and marriage falling apart, he found comfort in the test and failed. "Son, I failed Yah, my wife, my sons, and my community." Joe shook his head, setting the weights on the pulley bar. He continued. "I was all for self until Yah called me out on my mess." Joe was now eyeing Larry as though to say this next part was the lesson he needed to take heed to. Joe continued, informing Larry Yah called him out on everything, the test, the booze, the lack of trust he had in him, all of it. Joe laughed. "Man, next thing I know, I'm at home curled up in Brenda's arms crying like a baby. Yah broke me down, only to build me back up stronger and wiser." Joe continued. Larry listened. He enlightened the young man the day Yah sent him back home to Brenda. He'd already given her understanding not to turn him away. Joe pulled the cable, lifting the weights. He laughed out, admitting the whole time he thought it was Brenda who was broken. In actuality, it was him. And if it wasn't for her praying and sitting still, they wouldn't have never gotten through the toughest test of their lives. Joe looked over at Larry. The front of his shirt was soaked with tears. Larry called out to Yah for forgiveness. Joe nodded his head in agreement. He could see the young man was finally releasing the pain of losing a son and the shame of not being there for his wife. Look at there. And just like that, Yah will set things into place. He set the Fillmores in place to have a sit down with the Tates to help them with their healing process. Yes, hunties, always trust the process. Anyway, the men talked a while, swapping stories about life and the loss of their sons. This was just the therapy session Larry needed. The conversation really lightened his load. Larry was amazed at how strong Joe was mentally and physically. "Joe, man, your story is impressive to me. I often wondered, will I ever get over the hurt? Now I know I can, sitting here listening to you." Joe told Larry, "You really never get over the hurt. You just learn to live with it. Larry asked Joe how did he know Brenda wholeheartedly forgave him, because it felt like Betty still had resentment towards him. Joe looked out at Brenda and Betty, who were still sitting on the deck, and smiled. It took some time, man, but we found our way back to each other. Toda-ya. Okay, Toda-ya. Well, loves, the day went on, the evening was a treat, and it's the next morning and the Fillmores are getting ready to check out. Betty and Larry held Gabe's hand as he escorted them over to the checkout counter. They were amazed at his theory on how the dinosaurs became extinct. For them, Gabe was one brilliant 4, almost 5-year-old. Larry looked down at him amazed. So you're telling me you don't believe the dinosaurs were destroyed by a meteor, he asked. Nope, Gabe replied, prancing around. He told Larry he'd think the dinosaurs were damaged when Yah told Noah to build the ark and made it rain a lot. Drew chuckled when noticing Larry chewing his gum much slower now. Somehow, Gabe managed to calm both him and Betty. Drew was pretty sure the Tates had something to do with it as well, after coming back finding them all on the deck enjoying each other's company. But it was clear to see Gabe was the reason for the reconnection. Betty kneeled down and gave Gabe a hug. I hate to leave you, baby boy. These have been the best 3 days ever. Gabe touched Betty's heart. Thank you, Gabriel Yahim Tate. You are my best friend and I will never forget you. Betty then placed a kiss on Gabe's cheek. She told him he'd given her something back that she'd lost, the will to be a mother again. Beautiful, just beautiful. Look as though Serenity Meadows owes the Fillmores nothing. The reconnection, the gift of new friends was something money couldn't pay for. It's always a blessing when Yah put you in the right place at the right time. The Fillmores definitely received something more than just relaxation and reconnection. They were given a new understanding and outlook on life. It's a beautiful thing. And the end of this story time. Thank you all for your time and listening ear. Feel free to join me back over here at Imagination Station for the next story time. That'll be more than you can imagine. Until then, trust the process in every situation. Trust the process. Yah bless this reading and yourselves. Smooches.